Hello and welcome to the Female Founder Friday podcast with me, Lindsay White. I'm passionate about helping female entrepreneurs be great leaders, build high-performing teams, and create inspiring workplace cultures through innovative talent programs and practices. Because when people feel like they belong at work, they deliver their very best and businesses thrive. The Female Founder Friday podcast is all about connecting with the most incredible female entrepreneurs to talk about their journey to creating their own business, the mistakes they've made along the way, and how they view their own leadership. And I'm challenging all of my guests this season to take my leadership style quiz. And during each episode, we'll be digging into their leadership style and how it impacts the way they lead in their life and their business. And if you're interested in learning more about your leadership style and want some of my top tips to help you lead more effectively, you can take the quiz right now. Just check out the show notes or head over to highvoltageleadership.ca and click on the button at the top of the page that says Take the Quiz. Then you can share your results, connect with my guests, and join the conversation on Instagram by following me at @HighVoltLeadership. Hey, awesome. I have Monique with me today here on the podcast. Monique, thank you so much for being on the Female Founder Friday podcast, this show. I am really excited to have this conversation today.
Thank you, Lindsay. I am really happy to be here. I've had a great opportunity to listen to some of your other episodes, and it just got me more and more jazzed. So I'm really happy to be here.
That's so awesome. Yes. And I have to tell you, I appreciated right from the initial contact that you have been all in on doing this podcast. So pumped. That makes me happy because I got to tell you, I love doing this show. I love having these conversations. This gives me incredible joy and pleasure. And I love it when I get a guest that is like, pick me, pick me, pick me. Let's talk. When do we talk? Can we do it tomorrow? How's tomorrow? Is tomorrow?
Yeah.
Can we have a conversation now? I absolutely love that. So thank you though for making time. I mean, you've got a busy schedule and I appreciate you finding the time to connect with me. So I want to know, and I mean, I've read your bio, but I'd love to hear from you about your journey to being a female founder and what that backstory is.
I love in listening to your podcast all the backstories.
Right?
It really is good. It really is good. It's such a fun way to start because I think what it does is it dispels any hang up that somebody has that says, oh, well, I didn't get this start, so I can't be a founder. Like it proves that every single one of us has a unique story. And I just love that you asked that as your opening question. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So for me, it's, I started in my teens as a gardener and, my father was self-employed. My grandmother on my mother's side was self-employed. And so, I grew up sort of seeing self-employment. I was born in the 60s, so I've been around. And so it didn't seem weird, right? Like it didn't seem weird or like I was being special by going and asking people to pay me directly to do stuff. Like it's just, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't a special thing.
Yes.
What was special is that I was deeply impassioned by what I was doing, not because I was an earthy, crunchy kid growing up or anything. It was because I was a traumatized kid. And when I hit my teen years, I got kind of sloppy and messy and really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I fell into this, just like going out and gardening and realizing that I could get paid for it. And what I know now, I did not know back then, was that gardening is a regulating activity. It's neurosomatically regulating, right? So it helps lessen the trauma response. It helps people that are on the spectrum kind of regulate. It helps in all sorts of kind of calming and grounding, no pun intended, right? I didn't know I needed that. But I was just feeling connected when I did the work. So that's why the passion grew, was that I was literally feeling alive when I did not feel alive before that. The only other time that I felt alive was dancing.
Wow.
And so that's how I got into the industry, and how I really became a founder was that I immediately found that the dysregulating activities of the industry, which were the things that made it so that I was like in VUCA all the time.
Yeah.
I was dealing with, volatility, uncertainty. I was dealing with ambiguity,
Yeah.
complexity. And so I, just make my brain like, I
Yeah.
can't handle this. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be in control then.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it my way. And so it really was, when I look back on it, it was self-preservation. Both the
Yeah.
industry was self-preserving and also fulfilling and generative. But then being self-employed meant that I was in charge, that I wrote all the rules, that
Yeah.
everything was my responsibility. And at that point in time, I needed that. And so I went with it. And that was 38 years ago.
I love that. That's really beautiful. Thank you so much. And, as you said in the beginning, asking female founders about their journey, every single one is a different story.
Right.
I am always deeply honored when founders come on the show and talk about what is so meaningful and so deep and sometimes very traumatic for them. So thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
so directly and courageously. I love that. But I also really appreciate what incredible businesses come from really difficult pieces and places in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely true, because I think that when there is difficulty in our lives, one response is to kind of hide from it, put your head under a rock. And I actually think we do all of the responses. I've had my head under a rock many times.
Yes. Yes.
So I think we do all the responses, but when you can take something that feels so deconstructive and debilitating and turn it around and build on it, use it as fuel. So I remember being very angry when I was young, just lots of rage, lots of anger, a lot of fight energy.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing like 10 hours of hard physical labor to suck the fight energy right out of you, right? Like this fight energy goes because you're tired.
Yeah.
So, so from a regulating standpoint, gardening, landscaping, digging holes, mulching, driving trucks, like all of that was really, really good, because it kind of tamped that or regulated that energy. But the other piece of it was, I always thought anger was a bad thing. And so that felt kind of shameful that I was so angry. But what I ended up learning is that anger is really fuel. And so you can channel anger into something that is really positive. And I was doing that strangely without any education.
Yeah.
And then as education came into the picture, and self-reflection and starting to work on self-realization, is that I had to learn that I could transmute my anger so I didn't feel it. Things just don't make me angry anymore. Like it's just, it's not the fuel I want to use, but boy, I'll tell you, if you can channel it when you have it, it's rocket fuel. So use it for good and love and positivity and all that. And man, you can build some pretty freaking awesome things.
I mean, that I think that is so important. Like anger is a really powerful emotion. It's a very present emotion. It's a very physical emotion. Like we have quite the, physical and physiological reaction.
Right.
And so, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad you said that. Like if you can really understand how to use that power for good, not evil.
Right. That's the trick, right?
Great things. It's when that anger becomes all consuming. It's when that is the only thing you can focus on, and all the pieces that come with it. Revenge, vengeance, like all of the
blaming, shaming, accusatory act. Oh, all of it. It's so negative.
When that becomes the focus, then the anger will destroy you. It will eat you up. Yep. When you can leverage the anger and use it for forward momentum, right? Rocket.
Yeah.
You said it. I really appreciate that, because I think it's easy. It's super easy to let that anger be overwhelming and just be like an anchor around your neck. So
and I think you can also end up shaming yourself and being
100%.
accusatory to yourself, right?
100%.
So you also have to get rid of that so that you can build your self-confidence. So
100%.
I was lucky that it all came together. I mean, I do believe that luck, played into it a little bit, but I also was curious. And I would say to anybody, if you're feeling trauma, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling any of those things, that one of the best antidotes for it is curiosity. It's not like you need a silver bullet solution to solve. Yeah. Instead, it's really embracing curiosity, because you'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll learn a lot about how to regulate. And that's what I was learning as a founder in those early years.
I love that. Curiosity is such a powerful tool. And I mean, for sure, if you're having a trauma response, having the curiosity and having the safe space to do that and the right person to work with, 110%. But I think even in the coaching work that I do, I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach. Curiosity is a big tool for me and for my clients in learning about their leadership, learning about how to be an effective founder, how to create a blend between their work that they're passionate about and the life that they want to create and the people that they love and the things that they value. I think curiosity is such a powerful tool.
It really is. It is. And I love that you bring that into the conversation, because, I'm also a coach and I deal specifically with the trades. So I deal specifically, like my anchor coaching is around the green industry and all the associated trades for the green industry. But very interesting is tradespeople often, the trades really do draw in people who have a very tactile learning style.
Yes.
They sort of deal with the world with their hands. And so oftentimes it will attract people that are dealing with old wounds and trauma responses, and finding that, like, this idea of sitting at a desk and at a computer, I mean, forget it, like stick needles in my eyes. I'm not doing that. So as a business coach, I do the same thing you're doing, where I'm leading with curiosity, because those same negative stories that are happening in their mind about why their business isn't doing better, or they're not having a better founder experience or owner experience or employer experience, they're beating themselves up. And so that curiosity really helps, so that they can instead see that, they're kind of struggling with the same things that all entrepreneurs
100%
struggle with.
Right. I love that. One of the things that I think is in this conversation that we haven't called out yet is empathy. I think the curiosity is important, but I think empathy, and first and foremost, being empathetic for yourself. Because when you can offer yourself empathy, when you can pause long enough to get curious and to understand what's really happening for you. And yes, for some people that really is about some trauma, but really giving yourself the space and the understanding, and then offering that to other people is so valuable. But you got to go first, especially if you are a founder. You got to go first.
Yep.
And it's really important, because if you can't offer yourself empathy, you're actually not going to be super good at offering it to others. Right? That's going to hold you back. You got to go first and offer yourself the space to understand that you're not perfect. You're going to screw it up. That you didn't do it on purpose. Sometimes it's just that, you use the word dysregulation. That anger got in the way. It pulled you down the route. But really being able to step into that empathy space for yourself is so powerful.
I do believe it's powerful. You're right. And I also believe that, it's so funny, because that word can be a trigger, can be hard for people, because they're like, okay, I don't get the empathy thing. Especially people who are a little more rough and tumble. And so one of the things that I like to do is think about, the British judges with the white wigs on and everything. It's like, okay, let's just take the wig off.
Yeah.
Like, for a moment, if we could just take that judge, chief judge and jury, off, put it aside, then that's when you have access to empathies, because you're no longer looking at yourself through that critical judgmental eye. And I think that especially when founders, when their businesses grow and move into becoming an employer, that's where this work is so critical. Because if you're walking around as, you know, judge and jury on yourself all the time, that means what you're going to do is you're going to literally be turning that around to your staff, even if you don't mean to. It's kind of like you off gas it.
Like, let's throw the clients in the mix, because you're just constantly judging the shit out of everybody,
right,
including yourself.
Totally. Yeah.
Right?
So taking that wig off and like putting it aside and going, you know what, there's a place for that. That also is a great tool. But in most cases, if we can, like you said, lead with curiosity, have some, you know, more gentle responses to ourselves and to the people around us. I was blown away at how things in my business and in my personal experience started to change when I was able to start adopting and practicing those.
I love that. I really do appreciate that some of, you know, these, what we would maybe label softer pieces, are actually, they really have a place in every business. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you sell a product or a service, whether you work with your hands, whether you work with your heart, whether it's really about the thoughts. It is, these are universal pieces because we're all human beings.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Amen.
Love it. I absolutely love it. Okay. One of the things, Monique's already taken my leadership style quiz, and you could probably guess what kind of leader she is, just by the way we're talking. But I want to encourage you as a listener to take the quiz as well, whether you lead people or you lead in your business or you lead in your life, because we all do that too. Understanding who you are as a leader is actually really important. So you can click on the link in the show notes. You can go to the website, highvoltageleadership.ca, and there's a button at the top of the page that says, take the quiz. You can do that right now. It only takes a few minutes. It's not very long, but it's going to give you some insights as to what kind of leader you're showing up as. And I'm going to give you some great tips so you can be a more effective leader. And then you can see if you line up here with Monique. So what kind of leader are you? I'm kind of giving it away now.
Yeah. A coaching, you know, just, coaching. And I wasn't surprised. I didn't know what I was going to get, but I wasn't surprised when I got it. I think one of the, central tenets of my work now, you know, I was a gardener. I did my graduate work in garden design. I did my undergraduate work in entrepreneurship. I've been working with plants, you know, my whole life. I've done, you know, big riverside reclamations, bank reclamations, and I've done like little vegetable gardens. So everything kind of in between. And so I always considered myself a gardener, you know, for as long as I can remember. For the past, I would say 15 years, what I have been developing in my skill set is becoming a gardener of people. And that is
beautiful.
Yeah, it's really felt, it's authentic. I realized that my real passion ended up being my employees. You know, at first it was the plants, then it was the clients, and then it became my employees. And I think maybe even before my employees, it was my subcontractors. I have been able to develop very deep and long lasting relationships. I have clients who I met when they had young children, whose young children now have children.
I love it.
You know, so there's this endurance in nature where things persist and last and develop over very long periods of time. And I have found in my career that that's happened with people. And about 8 years ago, I was asked by a colleague of mine, a garden business owner, if I would help them build their business because they saw what I was doing. And she asked me a specific question. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be great. Like, let's go have coffee.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. She goes, nope, I don't want to have coffee. I want to hire you. And I was like, dude, what? You know? And so she was like my gift client from the universe. And I watched as her confidence grew and her company started to change and evolve. She, you know, mustered the courage to fire people that were undermining her business. She mustered the courage to, you know, move her company into a better location. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is so cool. And I had already been doing a lot of mentoring internally with my staff. And that's how the LifeScape coach was born. I just realized that what I wanted to do was help people have the full experience, which was more than just get your business right. It was understand the slice of your life that is your business.
Yes.
Not itself, but then how it fits into the rest of the pie, which is, like 7 other slices. It's not even like business is half. It's only a piece.
Yeah.
And if you're spending all your time doing that, and that's the thing making you unhinged, something's not right.
That
right?
is just brilliantly articulated, brilliantly articulated. And most importantly, for anyone that's listening that is a female founder in particular, your business is just a slice of your life. I really, really love that metaphor. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it took me a long time because, again, I was pretty imbalanced.
Yeah.
It was all work. I remember early on in my marriage before I had children, I came home, I had a client meeting and it went to like 7:30 and it was like an hour away from home. And I got home and it was like maybe 8:45 or something. And my new husband, kind of looked at me and said very pointedly, so I just think we should clear this up right now. Who are you married to? You or your business? And, he might still be asking that question a little bit because I am definitely, I embody all of my work. But my balance now is so much different. I'm teaching yoga. I've been studying yoga for a while. I've really engaged with my children who are, flying the coop now. But embodying that fact that it can be super important. It can have threads that run through your whole life, but it is only that small slice. A powerful one, but you've got to put boundaries, right?
You know what? I'm really glad you called that out. And I work with my clients a lot around building a work-life blend or integration, whatever word you want to use. I don't believe in work-life balance. I don't think that that's a thing. I don't believe that the slices of the pie are all equal all the time.
Nope.
And I think we kill ourselves to try and make sure that all the slices are equal and that we're taking a bite out of each slice equally. We knock ourselves out trying to do that. That's not going to work. What it is, it's about finding the blend. It's about finding the way the slices fit together, even if one's a little bit larger than the other at moments in time, and finding where we fit in all of that. So we don't get to that place where we're dysregulated, where we are exhausted, where we are really faced with complete burnout. Right. And you've probably seen this too. I've had clients come to me where they're like, I just want to burn it to the ground. I'm so exhausted and I'm so overwhelmed and I'm so completely without passion because I'm so burnt out that I just want to burn it to the ground. Whoa, time out, right? Just a minute. Now we've really lost the boundaries. It's not a pie, it's a mess. It's all in the pie pan together, but it's all just a big goopy, sloppy, whoa, right? Yeah. Like, where are those boundaries? And what are those boundaries all about? Like, what is important enough to have a boundary around it? Where does that slice of that pie need to meet up with the other thing? Like, I love that metaphor. Well, I could talk all afternoon about slicing. Yeah.
Well, I love what you said, because I'm with you. I hate the term work-life balance, like, so much. I really hate it. But I actually love the idea of, work integration. In yoga, the first, 10 minutes of your practice is integration. It's how to sort of integrate all the parts back into some kind of equilibrium so that you can settle. And, yes, like, for instance, in the landscape industry, the spring is a hard push. It is a really hard push. You go from 0 to like 100 in just a few days, and it's so fast, and you're not physically, emotionally, mentally ready. You think you're ready, like you've been prepping all winter, right? And then one thing happens, like you wake up one morning and your truck has a flat. Yeah. Right. And you realize, wait a minute, I was ready. And and so I love, the two things you said. One was that not all the pie pieces are the same size all the time,
Yeah.
and that it's integration and blend. And immediately, so I'm an incredibly visual person. So immediately what I got the sense of was like a pie chart.
Yeah.
And then the pie chart is doing two things. It's breathing. So it almost is like, going in and out, the way like a heartbeat or your chest would go in and out, but it's also expanding and contracting constantly. And at all different paces. I'd love someone to just animate this, because I think it would be so cool, right? Because then what it would say is you can totally be allowed to have moments where work is everything, and you prep yourself, your family, your friends, and you say, we're in the 100-day marathon here. We're going to do this. This is going to be this. It's an 8-week stretch, and you set everybody up. Well, 100 days isn't 8 weeks, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
And you set everyone up, and you get ready to run the race, and you have mile markers, and you know where you are. So it's not that you've got to have, I hate this idea that you've got to have this like gentle, even keel all the time. Like that's not going to work either. So it's
just like, the truth is, it's just not possible.
It's not possible, and it's not practical, because if you're going to make enough money, and if you're going to move from just sufficiency to maybe making a little more, you are going to have to put some serious sweat equity in there, which means you are going to have to get out of breath, sweat, and work really hard. But what we're not geared toward is doing that all the time.
No.
Because, right. So it's understanding what are those patterns. And basically I call it a grounded operational flow. So the idea is that you need to look at your entire, so for me, which is seasonal business, for every landscape year, or for every human year, there's like 4 landscape years. So you think about dog years. For every human year, there's 7 dog years, right? So there's 4 landscape years in every human year. So I have to be prepared to have a beginning, middle, and end, 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 spring, summer, fall, and winter, because they are structurally different. So every industry has its own pace, seasonality. And if you can look at your whole work structure and create a grounded operational practice for yourself, you are going to be able to disarm the elements that create the worst burnout, responses because of overwhelm.
Totally. Well, and I think, I mean, I love that. And I think about, that the seasonal business is very particular. It's very interesting. You're right. I mean, I get it, like 4 distinct seasons. I think even in terms of a business that isn't sort of seasonally run, but every business is going to have ebbs and flows, moments of growth, moments of stabilization, moments where perhaps you back off just a little. So there's going to be flows. They may not all happen within a calendar year. They could happen over a 5-year cycle, or a 3-year cycle. Or what does the startup phase look like? What does or what does, I have clients that really are in their last 5 years. They're really thinking about, what do I need to do to set this business up to be sold?
Right.
That's a different, so it's not all happening in 12 months. It could happen in longer phases, but isn't that interesting? And all of that to say, who do you as a leader need to be? How do you need to show up in those different phases, in those different spaces? I love the way you frame that, Monique. That is really interesting.
Yeah. And I think thank you. And I think that the other layer of that is the phase that you're in, like my kids are starting to fly the coop, which is very different than when I was running the business, when I had nursing babies, or when I had, kids in every umpteen sport and musical instrument. And you know what I mean? So it is as much the phases of your personal life as it is the ebbs and flows. And how do we predict those things? So I think sometimes we can be a little complacent, or we just sort of let life happen to us. But I think in those moments when you stand back and get curious, one of the questions is, wait a minute, has my life phase changed? Wait a second, is something going on in the economy? So I'm in a different work phase, so that we no longer try to use template structures, cookie cutter structures,
Yeah.
that we like grab off the internet or something, because
Yeah.
that's not going to work. You need to blend, back to your term, blend, which I love, is blending. Where are you in life? Where is your business in its developmental phase? Where is the industry in its, seasonal phase or whatever?
Yeah.
And looking at all of those factors. And I tell you, when you do that, the really cool thing that I think is the outcome is ultimately you are able to take that judge wig off, and you are a little bit off the hook. Again, not to become complacent, but you're at
No.
least not beating yourself up anymore because somehow you can't do it and everybody else can.
Thank you for calling out the distinction, because, when I talk about the judge, and how we judge ourselves and we judge others, we judge the circumstances, right?
Right.
When we take the wig off, as you have just so eloquently illustrated, that does not mean that we are no longer in a place of accountability or achievement. But what it means is that we are in a space where we are not kicking the shit out of ourselves.
Right.
That doesn't actually get us any further, any faster. And I would argue that you can get to the same level of success personally and professionally without kicking the shit out of yourself. You can climb that mountain and you can have a better trip up without the judge.
Yep.
Booting you in the butt all the way.
Yep.
There is a more effective way to get to do that, to achieve that success level.
Yeah,
without
absolutely.
beating the crap out of yourself. I also wanted to add, as you were talking, and just really, I love the way you are taking, this is like, all the gardening metaphors and stuff are just beautiful here. One of the things that also is possible in that space is building your resilience, because you just, like COVID showed us, you can't possibly get out ahead of everything. We're just not that good. We're not omnipotent. We don't have crystal balls. We're not mind readers. We don't know what virus is coming next. We don't know what we don't know. And one of the most important things that we can do as a business owner and a human is build our own resilience, so that when the situation comes that we just can't get out ahead of, that we are okay and we can quickly change, pivot, transition, be creative, get curious. If we have more resilience as a person, as a woman, that's really important in all of that.
I couldn't agree more. And an ingredient for me that is new is stillness. As I really, so I dove into yoga teacher training in the fall of 2019, and the end of the teacher training, it was like, I think the whole thing was 6 months, or I think it was 6 months, maybe it was 9 months. I can't remember, but it was going to end in May, and COVID, everything closed in March.
Right.
So the last 3 months were like blown up. We did the first, 6 months, and so it was a 9-month program. And, it was really frustrating, paid a lot of money, put a lot of time into it, really wanted to, finish this. And what I learned was that I had to stop trying to fix everything. And that part of it, you can get curious, but then the hang up for somebody like me, that's such a doer. And I'm in a space of people who are makers. We make the world. We're constantly making, is that what we think when you say get curious, we think, oh, okay, we're going to get curious and then creative, and then we're going to take action, and then we're going to solve it. It's like, do. Get me my hammer, get me my shovel, but that ingredient of stillness, that ingredient of self-contemplation, of allowing the gap to form, which is that moment where you can just walk a beach, or you can just sit in a hammock, or you can, try not to do something. And, this is like, I'm pointing the finger at myself right now.
You can't see her, but that's what she's actually
That's what I am doing. That was for me a huge ingredient, because I am such an audaciously driven individual that learning stillness was that piece, I think, was the secret ingredient to integration. Because I didn't want to be still. And I think stillness bothered me because
Ah.
I might, I don't know, learn something. So I would think I think that's a special ingredient.
Well, because we get a great deal of external gratification from doing, right?
Yes.
We
Yep.
get a huge payoff from doing.
Yeah.
There is not the immediate gratification from simply being. And that, for many of us, makes it far more challenging. It's also a little scary because I might uncover something in that stillness
Right.
I might not be completely comfortable with.
Right.
Holy shit.
Holy shit.
Right? I love that though, Monique, as a takeaway from today's conversation
Good.
is that, as female founders, as business owners, as mothers, as partners, as sisters, as friends, it is as leaders, it is absolutely key that we find those spaces of stillness. That is the space that allows us to get creative, to get innovative, to really find the resilience, fill our own cup so that we can solve the problem, get busy, get to work, make it happen, change the world. Right?
Yeah, there you have it. Tied up in a bow.
I love it. And I absolutely love this conversation today, filled with so many beautiful metaphors and so many interesting concepts and ideas. I'm super grateful to have had you on the show today. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Lindsay. It's really been absolutely fabulous. And I know we could just keep going and going.
Yes, we totally could. But we need to stop.
But we won't.
We will definitely talk again soon. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I sure hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did hosting this conversation. And if you did enjoy today's episode, would you do me a favor? Would you give the episode a 5-star review and share it with all of your friends? I would really appreciate that. I've got a goal to impact 1,000 female founders, and with your help, we can really amplify this message. Thanks again for being a part of the show, and don't forget to connect with me and all of my guests on Instagram at High Volt Leadership. We'll see you next Friday.